It's beer night! I'm Rich and I'm hiding in a little study in my house. All my children are asleep. My wife went out with her girlfriends, so I'm all alone with me and my pumpkin beers. So thank you so much for being with me for episode number 14 of my show about beer, where I learn about beer and explore the beers of the world. So thanks a lot for being here. Let me just kind of tell you what I've been up to lately. Last weekend, I went to visit my brother in Des Moines, Iowa. Now, his name is Scott. Now, Scott is a sports anchor reporter for Channel 8 in Des Moines, Iowa. He's kind of a local celebrity there. And my sister was there also. And something we did while we were there was we decided to do a special episode of Beer Night with Rich, where we all sat outside in the nice weather and we reviewed a local Des Moines beer. It was a sour style beer. My sister was very much into sour style beers and Gosa beers. So we reviewed one, and keep an eye out for that special release episode, which will come out in the next few days, where you can meet my brother and sister and we review this nice sour beer. The other thing we did while we were in Iowa, we drove about 40 minutes north of Des Moines to what I would call the Disneyland of pumpkin patches. So last week I bragged about how the pumpkin patches here in Dallas are so big now. This pumpkin patch, this was incredible. It's called Center Grove. It's essentially a farm, and I guess they turned it into this huge sort of fall festival. But they had a huge slide that you go down on burlap sacks. They had these huge bouncy things for kids. But interestingly, they filled up this huge like swimming pool tub thing, gigantic, with corn kernels. And everyone's just playing and swimming in all these corn kernels. The oil, I did it of course, but the oil, you kind of get oily from the corn kernels, and there's hay everywhere, so you're sneezing. But it was a lot of fun for the kids. So, way to go, Iowa. You know how to have fun with the corn. Also, while I was at this thing, I saw some random old guy sitting there with a hat on that said, "Don't ask me for," and I wanted to take a picture with him, but I didn't have the courage to just go up to this guy because his hat said not to ask him for anything. But of course, my brother Scott, always the outgoing one, went up and asked him for a picture with him and his hat. So here's the picture of the random old guy with the vulgar hat. Another thing I saw, which is very pertinent to today's beer, I saw a guy there walking around with a shirt that said, "Sam Adams, Brewer Patriot." And if you remember from a previous episode, first of all, I love this idea that we have Sam Adams, this founding father. He was a patriot. He fought against the Redcoats, and he also made beer, damn it. But remember from our history lesson, Samuel Adams, the patriot, didn't really make beer. He inherited his dad's malt house, but he was a terrible businessman. He didn't really do anything with the malt house. I wish I could say the real Samuel Adams was a huge brewmaster or even a brewer, but he wasn't. But I like the legend, and I guess I won't bash on it too much. So Sam Adams, not a brewer, but still a patriot. A trivia shout out. Oren, you got the question right 3 weeks in a row. I think Brian also got it right last week, but the question was, what percentage of a pumpkin is water? And Oren said 90%. Wikipedia says 92%. So we'll go ahead and give it to you. But most of this heavy thing here is water. So, but let's talk about that. So, what we're doing today is the beer Sam Adams 20 pounds of pumpkin. Here it is. And we're comparing it to the beer from last week, which was the Blue Moon Harvest Pumpkin Ale. So I wanted to see, does Blue Moon make a better pumpkin beer, or does Sam Adams? Now I found out Sam Adams also makes a Harvest Pumpkin Ale, but I couldn't find it in the Whole Foods, which is usually where I look for beers. So we're doing the 20 pounds of pumpkin. But they call it that because the Sam Adams Brewery literally puts 20 pounds of pumpkin flesh into every barrel of this beer. So last week with the Blue Moon, I could smell and taste the spices, the cinnamon, the nutmeg, but I could not taste the pumpkin. So I'm really curious if with this beer, I'm going to be able to smell pumpkin and taste the pumpkin. So, quick note that I didn't go over last week. Pumpkin ales are one of the oldest kinds of beer in America. They're one of the most oldest American beers. But early on, the colonists used the pumpkins just because they needed the pumpkin flesh for fermentable sugars to make ale. They weren't doing it because they wanted pumpkin flavor. They needed the sugars out of the flesh. So it wasn't even that popular. Now today, we're not doing it because we're not drinking pumpkin beer because we needed the sugars. We have plenty of malt and barley and stuff for that. What we're doing now is we want to taste the pumpkin flavor. So the pumpkin beer is the pumpkin flavor, and then the brewers add in the spices that you would typically taste in a pumpkin pie. The cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, and ginger. So it's sort of like pumpkin flavor and pumpkin pie flavor. So this is different than the pumpkin beers of the early colonial America. Let's go ahead and evaluate this thing. I'm curious to see what this looks like. See if it looks like the one from the Blue Moon one from last week. There we go. All right. You know what? I think this is darker. This is darker than the Blue Moon. Take a look at that. It's almost like a darker red. I always wonder if the flashlight helps you guys. It helps you see it at all. Let's try to look at this up close here. You see that at all? So it's a darker red than last week. God, it's almost brown. It's almost like a brown color. I don't even call that amber. It's brown. Not a lot of carbonation, or not a lot of head, I should say. Just a little bit there. Maybe it's because of how I poured it. But okay, the big question: am I gonna smell pumpkin? Because I did not in the Blue Moon one. And then we'll see if we taste it. So here we go. Sam Adams, to the non-brewer Sam Adams, even though I like the legend. I don't smell pumpkin. So I smell spices, and it smells very bready and malty. I do pick up on cinnamon and nutmeg. It's very yeasty and bready. Almost fruity to me. All right, let's go ahead and taste it. The big question, will I taste pumpkin? There's 20 pounds. If they can't do it with 20 pounds, I don't know how they can. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, they accomplished it. They did it. I do taste the pumpkin in here. All right, way to go. I taste the pumpkin in the Sam Adams beer. And it's the opposite of the Blue Moon one. The spices are not as heavy as the Blue Moon one. I would say the Blue Moon beer was heavier on the spices, and this is heavier on the pumpkin. Yeah, that's what it is. Now, maybe the Sam Adams Harvest Pumpkin Ale is more like the Blue Moon Harvest Pumpkin Ale, heavier on the spices. But this is the pumpkin beer, I would say. I am not picking up on that many spices. I don't really smell them and I don't really taste them. So this is sort of like a pure, I would call this more of a pure pumpkin ale. I'm pretty impressed. I like that. Maybe Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton should sit down, each with a glass of Sam Adams 20 pounds of pumpkin ale, and they could just work it all out together. You know, maybe Donald won't threaten to put her in jail, and maybe she won't, I don't know, smile all the time. Anyway, way to go, Sam Adams. I would say that you've got an authentic pumpkin ale here. I'm very impressed. So let's, where's my marker here? I'm gonna give this is just because I think it's probably hard to do It's probably hard to do a pumpkin beer and taste the pumpkins. Let's give this like, I'm gonna give this an 80, how about an 88? 88 for Sam Adams, 20 pounds of pumpkin. You did it. A beer that actually tastes like pumpkin and is good, and is really good. Okay, so, trivia question for next week. You'll see why I'm emptying this right now. What is it called when a beer bottle is used as a weapon? Ha! Ha! What is it called when you're in a bar fight and you grab a beer bottle and you hit it over someone's head? It's probably called like assault with a deadly weapon. I wouldn't recommend doing that to anyone. You'll probably go to jail for a long, long time. It's probably treated the same way as hitting someone over the head with like a club or the butt of a gun or something. But what is that called? What's it called when someone uses a beer bottle as a weapon? That's your trivia question. Okay, and next week's beer. So a very, very popular craft brewery is called Ballast Point. And they probably a few months ago came out with a Watermelon Dorado double IPA with natural watermelon flavors. So grab a Ballast Point Watermelon Dorado. We're going to do that next week in my sukkah. And if you don't know what a sukkah is, Google SUKKA and you'll figure it out. So we're going to do that next week. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching my show about beer. If you like my show, hit subscribe. And remember, no matter where you are in the world, even if you're that guy wearing the hat that says, "Don't ask me for," if you're that guy in Iowa watching me right now you know that you'll always have a friend right here in Plano, Texas, as long as you like beer. If you don't like beer, I'm not your friend. But if you do like beer, I'm your friend. Good night!